Welcome to Stokes County Boys, the podcast in which two friends discuss the place and things that made them who they are and who they are not. I'm Philip. I'm joined here, as always, by my good friend Patrick. Patrick, how's it going tonight?
Hello, hello. Still living the dream here in quarantine.
I think that's becoming your catchphrase, living the dream. You got your bandana on. You're letting your hair grow out and your beard grow out. I'm letting my hair grow out too, so it's all good.
Oh, it looks good.
In this episode, we're going to cover Episode 9 of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. So we're going to give our general impressions of that. We're going to do a deep dive in the lore. Really, we're using this movie to kind of cover our general thoughts about the saga in general. Not to say we won't cover other movies as we go along. But before we do that, Patrick, we got to talk a little bit about our hometown and what's going on around there. And we grew up in a little town called King, North Carolina, no bigger than 6,000 people. And one thing I wanted to pull up, Patrick, if you don't mind, is the Wikipedia page for King, North Carolina. Because there's a couple goals that I think could be a sub-theme of this podcast. And we'll talk about them once we go through it. I mean, our first goal is to just talk about things we like, right, Patrick? and this is my other goal, is to, if you were to search on Wikipedia King, North Carolina, you get the page, and honestly, I think we're doing ourselves a little bit of a disservice in terms of the information that's provided. Of course, you can get more information in other places, but your first stop is usually Wikipedia, and I'd like to, one, booster the information and the heft of this article, and two, get the Stokes County Boys podcast on this thing. What do you think?
I mean, we all have our goals.
Yeah, we'll start somewhere. And of course, I could probably sign up as a Wikipedia editor and do it myself, but I guess it would mean a little bit more if someone did it for us, right?
Well, now we're just fishing for compliments.
Well, maybe one day. Okay, so I just wanted to notice a couple things. If you go to this, the first thing you see, it gives you the regular information like the population and stuff, part of the Piedmont Triad near Winston-Salem, and then there's a couple extra little nuggets before we get into geography, history, and things like that. So it has only two things. It says it has two large public parks, Recreation Acres and Central Park, which feels a little underwhelming, but we'll let you know when Patrick and I were living there. There was only one major park, Recreation Acres. Right, Patrick?
Yeah. I mean, that's where all the ball games were played, and that's where you went in summer.
We also, in the meeting house that was there, the kind of common space indoor area, is where we had my dad's 40th birthday party.
There you go.
Maybe I should have my 40th at the Recreation Acres. What do you think?
I would go to that.
It's not a bad idea. I may do it. And then the last thing, before we get into the little subsection, says on March 15th, 2017, King opened a Walmart. And this it kind of makes me sad.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, we're talking about this town that was founded, and we'll get into this in a second. It was founded in the 1880s, and this is what we got. 2 parks and a Walmart. So let's get into the history a little bit, because I actually found this interesting, just based on this article, stuff I didn't know, and Patrick and I were talking about this too, that we really didn't grow up learning anything, not too much about our town. We just heard about King's Cabin, but it says here, originally the town was called King's Cabin, and it was 2 brothers, I suppose, Charles and Francis King. They lived in the cabin owned by Francis's father. See, this is really confusing, because it says Charles and Francis King lived in a cabin owned by Francis' father. So were they a domestic partnership, or were they like cousins, or what?
Well, see, when I heard Francis, I thought female. I thought they were married. I mean, this is not very
that might be true.
According to the Wikipedia page. And again, this is kind of the point I believe that you're trying to make, is that we don't know about our hometown. And I don't think it's just us. I think that it's, you grow up in an area, you kind of expect to know more about where you're from.
Yeah,
we don't know this. We don't know we don't know Francis's brother or wife,
or cousin.
Or cousin. It could be anybody. I mean, we don't know. And I think that looking at this Wikipedia page, which again, when this day and age of mobile technology and having the Encyclopedia Britannica in your pocket at all times with a smartphone, Wikipedia is one of the first things that you go to. And I think that we're doing a disservice to our hometown and our home county when we look at, oh, wow, there's 2 parks and a Walmart.
Yeah, there's more to it than that, right?
You look at any small town in North Carolina is based on the people that inhabit it. And we've got families who have generations on generations who have grown up in this area. And they've all got stories. Sadly, the first story that pops into my mind is that murder on Christmas that they wrote the books about.
Oh, that's an episode right there. Thanks for reminding me of that one.
It runs the gamut, though. There was a Rescue 911 was filmed in Stokes County, and but
oh, wow.
But it that actual episode, of course, it's based on a real story.
Yeah,
people that were in an emergency situation.
Oh man, I've forgotten about that. I'm gonna have to find that episode now. Well, let's get back to it just real quick. So apparently this cabin, they built it in the 30s, and instead of being Quakers and they're against slavery, they actually moved north. So the family that was the namesake of our town left it because of the being in the South and a slaveholding nation. A slaveholding state. So luckily there is a small book. I actually need to get a hold of this. So Chad Tucker, who actually is he's on Fox 8, the local Fox affiliate, but he also did some research and wrote a book in 2006. Said after the King family left, it was like a landmark, just for saying, oh, go down over to King's Cabin, keep going north, you'll end up in Rural Hall and then Winston-Salem, I guess, or Statesville, or,
Well, you got to be going south because Rural Hall and Winston-Salem is both south.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God. It's been a while. Yeah, you're right. So you go on down, going down to King's Cabin, keep going south. That's how we should say it. And it was called King's Cabin. So years later, after 1888, they built the railroad through there and the post office, and then it was shortened to King. And that's the way it's been since 1894 when that first post office was put there. And that's what we got of King so far. So I think one thing we want to do, Patrick, as you were mentioning earlier, I think we could add to this Wikipedia page a little bit. And maybe some people can help us out. So if you got any little tidbits that might should go in this Wikipedia page of King, North Carolina, you can always email us at stokescountyboys@gmail.com and give us the info. And I'll have Patrick add it in, right? You're gonna.
Oh yeah, because I'm real good at that sort of stuff. No, but beyond just bulking up a Wikipedia page, I genuinely want to know where we're from, because the people, if you, like I said, any community is based on the people that inhabit it. And if you talk to people, everybody's got stories from their family that were passed down. Everybody has these tidbits of information that they can add. And I really do think that it's selling our home county short when these stories are not being told or not as public. And I genuinely want to know where I came from.
Right. Well, I think we can do that. It may not be public knowledge, but the thing is I do have access to a university library that has like digitized records and stuff. So I plan to, at least through the course of this series, to kind of dig into that, see what I can find, and present it to you, Patrick. So maybe during the course of this, we'll learn a thing or two. So that's my hope.
That sounds good. I think it's,
I won't always make fun of it. I will a little bit, but,
Well, it's kind of like having, I don't have any brothers or sisters, but I imagine it's kind of like a family where you can make fun of it, but somebody else does. Oh no.
Oh yeah. We'll work on it episode by episode, Patrick.
Sounds good.
But we're not going to go any further on that today because we got other business to take care of. So when we get back from break, we'll talk about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. What's up, everybody? If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, it's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. 3, Anchor will distribute the podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. This is a big one because it's really hard. I've done it manually. It's not fun to get it on all those websites. And lastly, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. That's what we're doing, Patrick, and trust me, they'll pay us. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started. Now back to the show. Oh, one last thing before we get back to the show. Please go to our Anchor website at anchor.fm/scboys/support, and you can support the show for as little as 99 cents per month. What do you get in return? Well, the show keeps going, and the other thing, any supporter will get a shout out on the show, so you'll be entered into the record of the Stokes County Boys. And also, if you'd like, we'll reach out to you, and you can choose the topic of a future episode. Thanks in advance for your support. Now, back to the show. And we're back. So, Patrick, today our main topic of discussion is the final film, as we've been told thus far, the final film in the Star Wars saga, at least the Skywalker Saga, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which doesn't sound like an ending to me now that I think about it. So, just want to start. We'll give first impressions. The thing is, Patrick and I have been Star Wars fans for a long time. So I have a distinct memory. One time you came over to my house and you brought over your VHS copy of the Star Wars trilogy, and we watched all 3 movies. I think you came over in the afternoon and stayed the night. We watched all 3 in a row, which was a preview to our Harry Potter marathon that we did one day. That was kind of rough.
That's the best part, because I know that at some point we're going to talk about Harry Potter on this podcast.
Yeah, of course.
But my favorite part about that Harry Potter marathon, and I believe it was after the 5th movie came out. I don't think it was after the 6th. I think it was after the 5th.
I think the 6th one was coming out, so we were watching them all in sequence in anticipation for that one.
We got about a 1 or 2 movies in, and we just had to stop and go get more beer and Chinese food.
Yeah.
We went to the Chinese food that was pretty close to my house to pick that up, and it was something.
It was hard. It was rough. But doing the trilogy as kids wasn't that bad. But that's that's a memory of you and I enjoying Star Wars together. The other was, we did go see Episode 1 when it came out. I remember after school, I don't know if it was the day it came out. It might have been the day it came out, right after school we went over.
It was pretty close to opening day, because I think you and I have always been on the same page with movies or stories that we care about or are more invested in than others. You don't want to get spoilers. You don't want to get things spoiled. And so it's I want to see this for myself organically now, so that some jerk doesn't ruin it for me tomorrow.
Or even, I even avoid reviews. Sometimes I'll avoid even the trailers, because I just want to go in fresh and just see it as a movie. It's hard to, empty your mind, and especially with this particular film that we're talking about today, to kind of empty your mind of, expectations or things you've already heard or things like that. Despite that, this is, I think Episode 1 was the movie we saw in the theater together, and then we finished it up in December. We were actually able to catch this one together. Overall impressions, Patrick, what do you think of the movie overall? And then we can dig into what we want to, because, we will not have any trouble filling up time talking about Star Wars. We'll probably have to cut each other off at some point.
So let me start by saying this. I liked it. And I want to be very clear, because I'm going to be very harsh and critical because I am a nerd. I am a geek, and I'm going to, because I liked it. And, if I had to say thumbs up, thumbs down, I'm going to say thumbs up. My problem, or problems, plural, with it goes well beyond just the 2.5 hours or however long it was that we sat in the theater and watched it. I thought that it was good, but I thought it should have been better. I want to look at the last 3 movies, episodes 7, 8, and 9, if you will. And my problem is that I think in great George Lucas fashion, even though I know he did not direct these movies, George Lucas, here's the thing, he sucked at dialogue. He was not, he was a great big picture person, but then the execution left so many gaps, in my personal opinion. I think that as a whole, and I'm not trying to blame anybody, I'm just saying as factual, as facts, these 3 movies were supposed to be a cohesive trilogy.
Right.
And they originally were sent to the writers with a director per movie in mind. And if you go back to interviews with George Lucas, he always imagined the Star Wars saga as being where each movie could stand alone. Yes, they were part of more than what they were, but they could stand alone as their own entity. And when you watch The Force Awakens, you get a rehash of New Hope in a lot of ways, which is what the fans wanted. It was familiarity. It was just not cookie cutter, because, there were things about this trilogy. I love that you have a female protagonist.
Yeah, Rey is great, and I love her progression in each film too.
And I love that she started as a nothing and a nobody.
Yeah.
Kind of like Luke started. You learned that both ended up not being a nobody. Right. And it's arguable whether Rey should have been or not, but that deals with Last Jedi. But my point is that The Force Awakens opens the door. Last Jedi took it in a complete different direction, for better or for worse. And and I'm still kind of on the fence on whether I like The Last Jedi or not, based on the overall trilogy. That I don't know if it met what it was supposed to mean. It led the direction in a different way. But then Rise of Skywalker, because they went back to J.J. Abrams, it took what I considered some important plot points of this new trilogy that's going to end the Skywalker Saga, and it kind of just diluted things that I think should have been spotlighted. And, for example, let me get a specific example, Rose. Yeah. Rose became such an important character in that Last Jedi movie, and then at the end she confesses her love to Finn, like, what's going to happen with this? And then, boom, she's in the movie for like 8 minutes.
I know, that really bothered me and I'll agree with you that overall I did like the movie. I would give it a thumbs up, but that is one thing that did bother me, because I was hoping that in this final movie, she would get more character development as well, and be on that adventure with them, because I really liked the character. It had good potential, and then, it was just, like, left behind. Almost like, you can almost see that JJ was like, I didn't write this character. I don't have anything to do with this. It felt like that. I don't know if that was the case.
It did feel like that, and I hesitate on saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. In credit to J.J. Abrams, he took what it felt like he did not like, and he put a pretty quick Band-Aid on all the things. Go to Palpatine. I understand why he was in there. If you look at Star Wars lore, clones are not... they made the whole clone arc based on clones, like Camino, all that stuff. Like, so it wasn't far-fetched, but it seemed so convenient that, boom, okay, big baddie, Snoke, this larger than life character from the first or from Force Awakens, and when I say larger than life, I mean literally larger than life, because yes, it was a hologram, but this dude was like a beast.
Yeah.
Right. And you actually see the physical form in The Last Jedi, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's just an ancillary character that doesn't really make much difference. Yes, I created, he was my puppet. And then, it just felt like too much of a, I don't like the direction it was going. So I'm going to just pull it back to what I wanted to do, but I know I have to resolve it. And so here's a quick Band-Aid. Let's move on.
Yeah, because the Ryan Johnson theory was that the Force can be developed by anyone. It's not dependent on lineage. It's not dependent on kind of like, it's essentially what Kylo Ren said in there was like kind of basically kill the past. And so Ryan Johnson did that in like having a throne room scene, which was kind of it felt like an echo of the throne room of Last Jedi, but it wasn't, it wasn't the Snoke wasn't the Emperor that was like manipulating both of them for as long as you thought they might. You just had Kylo Ren that was in control of everything, and then you had Rey, who, as you said before, had no lineage to the Skywalkers or to a Jedi tradition or anything like that, and that really intrigued me. And they're like, "Whoa, we're starting from scratch here." But like you said, it was almost like JJ was just like throwing that out the window and just, well, let's do what I wanted to do. And which makes me think I would love, and it probably won't happen because Disney has its protective clause on it. I would love like an actual like a book that explains the production process of this trilogy. For example, Brian J. Jones wrote a George Lucas biography a few years ago. Have you read that, Patrick, by chance? It is really good. But the George Lucas one is pretty fascinating and kind of convinces me on the difference between the first Star Wars trilogy and then when he does the prequels. I'm not going to get into that now, but I want something like this for this production because, like you said, it felt like he sold it to Disney because he thought they would take care of it. And honestly, I think they did kind of a sloppy job. And I think one was they rushed it, not only in terms of pushing out the first movie, but they also try to do them every 2 years. And I think a year of production, post-production, pre-production even, so the writing process and all that, I think it would have really benefited.
I want to agree with you on that because sheer logic tells you that if you spend more time thinking things through and developing, then you're going to end up with a better product. And that's not just movies.
I mean, there is a line where you overthink it and it gets worse. But
where I'm going to disagree with what you just said just a little is because I don't know that the system of Star Wars lends itself to where everything can be thought through and then executed the way it was planned.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And let me, like, for example, you look at a true Star Wars fan. And when I say a true Star Wars fan, I mean somebody that actually emotionally can invest in this lore.
Yeah.
So and that doesn't mean it's somebody that's read all the comic books or all the novels or knows everything about the extended universe or has played all the video games. It's, somebody that genuinely enjoys the lore.
Mm-hmm.
The way the last 3 movies were thrown at us, and I'm not going to blame Disney because Disney, the machine of Disney, has worked for years and years. Whether you like it or not, people still pay money to go see the movies. People still go to the parks. People my concern with these movies is that it felt like they had a plan. Mm-hmm. For better or for worse, they had a plan. You're going to direct this movie. You're going to direct this movie. You're going to direct this movie. They're going to have a general consensus as to what's going to happen from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. But you're going to have the freedom to, as George Lucas had originally put out there, to make the individual movie stand for itself. Yeah. And then because and I don't know why. And somebody knows why.
Well, that's why I want the book. We got to know why they fired Colin Trevorrow. Was it the book? I've always heard it was the Book of Henry. He made that film after he did Jurassic World, and it flopped, and it was apparently really bad. And that's about that time they fired him.
It's interesting. And I know we need to get back to like the actual movie itself here.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, it's all connected.
impossible.
I think
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's what you're saying. It's impossible to isolate completely because you have to look at what came before. I thought that, like I love the characters in this trilogy. I love them. I think that character development is something that should have been more of a focus, especially as it went on. We got to see Rey develop. We got to see Ben. We got to see all of them develop, all the main characters develop some, but I thought that they could have done so much more. And it begs the question, it's like, do you want to see, if you go into an art gallery, 20 paintings that are mediocre in your mind, or do you want to see 2 that are epic, that you're going to just fall in love with and learn from and take with you? And I felt like Rise of Skywalker had everything I wanted it to be, but then they watered down so much to the point that while I did like it, I felt so unsatisfied because everything that I saw that I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, now we're done with that. Let's move to the next scene or whatever. I felt like it should have given more.
You know what helps me kind of realize that I agree with what you're saying, and I felt the same way. And at first I was like, am I just like old and just kind of get out of it? But I'll just give the example of my son who, if he wants to watch a Star Wars movie, I ask him which one he wants to watch. And then I'll say, because we have Disney Plus right now, I was like, hey, they just added Rise of Skywalker. You want to watch that again? He was like, now let's watch the original Star Wars. Let's watch the first one, as in, Star Wars A New Hope. And that's the one he really likes. And he's drawn to like that one and Return of the Jedi more than any of the other movies.
Well, that's just it. I mean, like, there's as Yoda said, there's nothing more precious than the mind of a child. Like, but in all seriousness though, like,
the younglings.
We tend to look at everything all at once. All of us, whether we're 6 years old, whether we're 60 years old, we look at everything. And I like the cinematography of the episode 1, 2, and 3. That pod race scene in the first in Phantom Menace, that was epic. That was great. The Attack of the Clones when they're in the Coliseum and you see all those
when the Jedis come out, it's so cool.
And you think this is it, but then you fast forward 30 minutes later and you see Yoda fight with a lightsaber. Yoda, those sorts of things. You got to look at all of it. So yes, there's the spectacle. Yes, there's the story, and yes, there is the special effects stuff. J.J. Abrams is very well known for his use of special effects in his movies. For better or for worse, he's very, it sometimes can be distracting. You look at A New Hope and you look at that Death Star blowing up and you think about what that same exact scene would have looked like. Well, actually, we did get to see that same exact scene in Force Awakens. So
I feel like you planned that one.
but you look at all of it kind of tied into one. So let's get in specifics of Rise of Skywalker here. So
we'll eventually talk about the movie, right?
So you're going to edit. So, you got it. The opening scenes of Rise of Skywalker, one of the first things I said about the movie was that I thought it should have and could have been better in its portrayal of certain scenes. Mustafar, they're in the Mustafar system. You're on Darth Vader's home world.
And I only knew that through looking at the IMDb plot summary.
Well, that's just it. You had to look at external sources,
right,
to let you know. And then there's good data telling you, oh, well, the reason that this lava encompassed planet now has vegetation is because it's been this long. And I'm like, all right, look, when I go to a movie,
You saw Moana, you saw Te Kā turn into Te Fiti, and then that's how it works.
I like I
It's
don't.
part of the whole Disney thing. See,
It is, but like I think that it could have been so much more powerful if I had not had to go to external sources to know that Kylo Ren to get the Wayfinder, which is a Sith holocron. I know that because of the extended universe. Well, it would have been nice for them to have like if J.J. Abrams can do a 2-sentence fix on why Palpatine is still alive or why he's Rey's grandpa now, why could he not have done a 2-sentence fix to say, this is a holocron, this is what a holocron is?
Yeah, because I had no idea. When you watch it, it was sitting there, first time seeing it, you go through there, and you're just like, where is he? What's going on? It didn't even look like a Star Wars movie, the way it was like bodying these guys in slow motion, and you're like, what's happening? And then he's in a TIE fighter flying to this place, and then he's right there, like right after he gets that Wayfinder, then he's right there at what is it, Exegol, where and it's so much happens in like 5 minutes. You're just like, what is going on? And to me, I think that's one of my main criticisms. Despite liking the movie, it's a rushed mess in a way.
If you watch all of the movies independently and you don't connect them, episode 4 to 5, 5 to 6, whatever, then I thought that it kind of followed that same.
Yeah, because you have a contained kind of this adventure story of this. You have this MacGuffin that, this thing that you're trying to find, or you have this thing that's going to lead you somewhere else, and it's going to lead you to another thing, and it's kind of this adventure. So you're hitting a lot of different planets and different spots and different dangers and things like that. And in that way, yeah, it's fun, and it connects back to the original George Lucas. It calls back to the original inspiration, movie serials like Flash Gordon and stuff that influenced George Lucas to make the thing in the first place. So I appreciate that there is a nod to the George Lucas inspiration.
And that's to be commended to an extent too.
Yeah.
Like I think a big issue I had with it though was that while they were hopping around a little bit, they had everything in their control and everything right on the table that they could have made it feel so much more cohesive.
Yeah.
And whether that's a line here to say where Kylo Ren is at the beginning, Exegol. So it's a Sith world that was hidden away, that the Emperor built a completely new empire without anybody knowing.
It's a big galaxy, Patrick.
Yeah, it is. It's very far away.
You don't even know what's going on Mars, okay?
Oh, no, I do not. But that's because, I'm ignorant, clearly. But, like, in the Star Wars universe, there's a precedent already for a Sith world. And depending on where you are, whether you're reading the novels, whether you're playing the games, whatever, it's either Morabond or Korriban. But it's already established. I think that it would have felt more cohesive had they not. Oh, here's another random thing. If we go to anybody that watched the original trilogy and talk about the Dagobah system, it doesn't matter what's in the Dagobah system. They're going to know that it's crawling with life, and it's very force sensitive because of the introduction to Yoda in Empire.
Yeah.
You can take that and run with it. You can turn it into whatever you want. But they took a random planet and they gave it a name, and they threw an emperor that was thought to be dead, and they gave them a complete starship fleet where every ship had the power to destroy a system, and they had plenty of manpower. They didn't explain
where they recruit all those guys. Like, well, that's one thing I do not like, are those red stormtrooper.
Did you? And I'm trying to stick to the movie, but at the same time, as we mentioned, you can't fully stick when you're talking Star Wars. You can't.
Yeah, because they pull from all those. I mean, it's like all these like Batman movies. They'll make their own stories, but they're pulled from like Dark Knight Returns, the Killing Joke, and they'll pull from all these various little storylines. Yeah, all
you're
that
right.
stuff.
Did you ever play Knights of the Old Republic?
No, I think I watched you play a couple times.
I'm pretty sure the first time I played it, you watched me and y'all made me quit playing so we could go eat or something. Because yeah. Starforge. A Starforge is a planet kind of like in The Force Awakens, where the actual entity was turned into a weapon. A Starforge in the Star Wars universe, and this is going back to that video game, but it's also, in the lore, is how they came up with those ships. Basically, it was like a rotating just assembly line that just spits out these Star Destroyers, spits out these ships. But it made sense. It's in the lore. If they would have taken 2 minutes to just say, this is a Starforge. What's a Starforge? The Starforge spits out all these ships. Like they could have done that, and it would have just answered questions that people had that they wouldn't have had to ask, or be just like random,
or supplement from something else that's not in the movie. I think I've told you this before. I think there's a 4-hour cut of this movie that's really good. I really think that we get more Rose Tico. We get a little bit more exposition that makes it less annoying that some of this stuff is happening. Hopefully we get a few more scenes with Babu Frick, who I loved that character.
If you look at Star Wars lore, one of the most, I don't want to say just most famous, but one of the most beloved characters is Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But what do we actually know about him from the actual movies? He's barely in it. Because they gave a snippet, people were able to take his character and expand upon it in their own way. And you look at Captain Phasma, same kind of cameo as
true. That is true. That's a good point.
This, and with several characters that you have in the Rise of Skywalker, they kind of follow that same blueprint where you get enough of them that you think, that's an awesome character, but I don't know anything about it. And then it's over. Well, Boba Fett was the original. They kind of followed that blueprint.
I will commend it on, it looks great. It looked awesome. There's just really cool scenes. I love the lightsaber duel that they have on that ocean moon, with the ruins of the Death Star behind it. I mean, that's awesome. Or showing some of the training with Rey and Leia. And that's another thing, that Leia, Carrie Fisher had passed away. And I think that really hindered the film. It was a detriment to, they kind of made it work and they did the best they could. But I really think she was probably going to be more of a focus on that movie, because you have like Force Awakens is the anchor there is Han Solo in a way, and then Last Jedi you have that anchor of Luke Skywalker, and I think this was supposed to be the Leia movie, as in terms of the original trio that kind of came back to these new films.
Well, again, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Well, we probably won't know.
I need that book. That's what I'm talking about, because I want to know these things. I want like original scripts. I want Colin Trevorrow's script that they fired him for. I want all that stuff.
Fascinating. It would be completely fascinating, and very much people would want that, and people would read it, people would listen to it, people would watch it. Like people want more, and that's, I think, my problem with a movie that I genuinely did like, was that I genuinely wanted more. Yeah. I never connected with Kylo Ren as a villain.
I liked Kylo Ren. I can understand if people had issues with him. I think for me it worked.
Neither one of us grew up watching the original trilogy in movies. We watched it on VHS and then eventually
or on
DVD.
TV, catching it on TV or something like that.
Yeah. But when it came to the character of Kylo Ren, I see exactly what they wanted, and I never felt the connection of fear with him. People talk about the greatest villains of all time. Darth Vader is going to be in there. I am not as scared of Darth Vader as some people might have been, because never really saw it in the theater. I never saw this big baddie.
Yeah.
At the end of Rogue One, you saw Darth Vader being what we knew as Darth Vader, like just slaughtering everybody. In the video games, depending on what you're playing, you see the power of the chosen one that went dark and all that. But like,
I mean, by the time, I think it's because by the time we were of age to really consume and understand and remember that Star Wars stuff, Darth Vader was such an icon that it doesn't faze you or scare you like it would if you saw it for the first time.
Well, that's it. Kylo Ren, in my mind, was not and is not iconic. I don't see him as
he's a Darth Vader fanboy, and in one way I kind of like that, but it's almost too meta. It's like this the whole Disney Star Wars, it has this issue of being about Star Wars fans. And for me, like, Kylo Ren represents like toxic Star Wars fans that want it a certain way, and they wear the helmet and they do it like this way, and it's kind of making fun of their own fan base in a way, and in that way it's a little annoying to me.
How did you feel, kind of wrapping up a little bit with it, like how did you feel about the ending when she took the Skywalker name, buried Luke and Leila's
I liked it all right. I think it was a nice way to end it. It would have been cool, you know, when she looks off in the distance and sees like Luke and Leia in a kind of funny way. Oh man, I would have lost my marbles. I would have gone nuts if I'd seen Hayden Christensen there too. I mean, come on. That was your moment. I mean, he's been redeemed, right? Because he shows up as a ghost in the end of Return of the Jedi. Give me that. Or Kylo Ren there too, but
like the full Skywalker name.
Yeah, exactly. Like that whole lineage. I don't know. It might have been goofy. People probably would have laughed or something, but I don't know. I would have got a kick out of it, to quote the late Fred Willard. But I liked it. I think it was cool to end in Tatooine.
Yeah.
Essentially, where it's the first planet we see in the first movie. But yeah, so I initially I think the end was nice. She took the name of Skywalker, and it just makes me think that there's going to be more movies. There's going to be some Rey, there's got to be.
They recently, I don't know if it was an official announcement or if it was rumblings or whatever, but it looks like they're going to actually produce some more Star Wars movies with Rey, and she's training this new generation of Jedi.
I thought instead of having new Jedi, she would have like the Order of Skywalker or something. So that's what I thought Rise of Skywalker meant, was that eventually, because, Luke Skywalker had said the Jedi must end, well, she's going to continue this, good side of or light side of the Force through a different name, and it would be the Skywalker Order or something like that. That's kind of what I assumed would happen, but it's fine.
I liked seeing the rise of Rey, and
yeah.
I really did love her as a character. I thought that, like the intro scene that you saw her in Rise of Skywalker, where she was meditating with rocks lifted, and I thought that was a fun throwback to when she's first getting her first lesson with Luke, and what do you think the Force is? Oh, it's levitating rocks, and like I thought that was a fun throwback. I thought they did a great job with the digital youthing of
the de-aging.
Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher to make them look, I thought it was very telling that, they explained why Leia abandoned her Jedi training.
Right.
There were some really good things about it. You get to the end, it was a lot of closure. I like closure. And, I thought it was great that, Rey had buried Luke and Leia's lightsabers in Luke's home on Tatooine. I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome to see the yellow lightsaber that she had constructed. Mm-hmm. If I could, I'm a huge lightsaber fan, and I'm a huge nerd about lightsaber fights and all this stuff. Like I wish The Force Awakens would have shown Rey with a lightsaber a lot more than the very end. I wish they would, just give me give me a hero with a lightsaber and just press play for 2 hours. Let me see what happens. I liked the end with her yellow lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, because she clearly was more comfortable with like the bow staff, like the full length.
Yeah.
Just like,
you wanted the double.
Why not give her the double lightsaber there? Now, depending on what you read online, she eventually turns it into that. Like, look, no. Let's talk about what we see.
What we see, yeah.
Let's see what we see. Like, let me see the double-bladed yellow lightsaber, because I think that would have been one of those holy crap moments that you just take with you, like so many movies before gave us.
Yeah. That being said, we said we liked it, but I asked Patrick ahead of time. We wanted to rank to see in the context, being Star Wars fans, how this movie ranks in context, not to other movies, but to other Star Wars movies. So we're just going to stick with the 9 episodes that are in this so-called Star Wars saga. Mine might seem pretty typical, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So yeah, number 1, Empire Strikes Back. I mean, that's kind of the common answer, but I really love it. And I think it moves a little bit faster than the first movie. It's just really cool. You have the introduction to Yoda. You have that untrained lightsaber battle between Luke and Darth Vader, which I really enjoy. I just love it. I love the look of it. I love the direction of it. It's the best directed movie to me. It's just, I love it. Number 2, Star Wars. A New Hope, Episode 4, whatever you call it. But 3, I got Return of the Jedi. Some people malign this movie, but I think it's really good. It's a little goofy in parts, and I've heard and it's pretty apparent that Harrison Ford was kind of like not really interested in doing the movie, so you can kind of tell. But I mean, what makes up for it for me is some of my favorite stuff in all of Star Wars is just that throne room scene. It cuts back and forth, but if you put that all together, that's one of my favorite things in Star Wars is, you got Luke against Darth Vader and the Emperor there. I love that. Number 5, I have Revenge of the Sith. A lot of talk about the prequels. I think they're kind of coming into their own now. They're not as criticized as they once were, or maligned as they once were. My favorite scene being the opera scene where Emperor Palpatine, well, I guess at the time, Chancellor Palpatine tells the story of, Darth Plagueis the Wise, right? That whole scene's just awesome. I love that. I love that scene. All right, number 6, Force Awakens. Yeah, it's great. It's a remake of Star Wars, and it was really good. Number 7 is Rise of Skywalker that we just talked about for a long time. And then coming up in the rear, I guess at the end, we have Attack of the Clones, and then lastly, Phantom Menace. How about you, Patrick?
All right, so you ask me this question tomorrow, it's going to change.
Yeah.
I want to be clear about this because, we look at Star Wars as fans, and we look at the entire body, and we're looking at story, we're looking at characters, we're looking at scenes, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know what our audience, I don't know what our listeners, I don't know what our friends, our family, I don't know what people think, but
let us know. stokescountyboys at gmail.com.
There you go. Do you, and I mean you, like everybody, when Darth Maul first lit that double lightsaber.
Yeah, it was momentous. Of course, yeah.
Oh my God. And you pair that with the music at the time, Duel of the Fates, which is actually recently come out. And I don't think this is official. I think this is, fanboys talking online, fangirls talking online. I'm a music major. And so I listen very carefully to music and movies. Duel of the Fates, if you think about it, when Duel of the Fates, the actual snippet of Star Wars music, you got your Emperor's March, you got, all that stuff. Duel of the Fates, what happens if Liam Neeson's character Qui-Gon does not die? Anakin is trained by that was the duel of the fates. I think that really twisted the storyline between Sith and Jedi. And so, all this plays into my list. I start with Return of the Jedi as my number one.
Okay.
And I know that that's not the popular opinion. Here's the thing.
Well, this is for you, Patrick. This is personal.
It is very personal because I like closure. Yeah. I like seeing Luke Skywalker with his lightsaber as a full-fledged Jedi. I liked that he had completed his training. He didn't know it at the time, but Yoda confirmed it. I liked that there was closure. You saw the redemption of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. I love that. I thought that was perfect. Yeah, it was hokey, it was cheesy, and all of the movies are. But for pure storyline, I like that because it gave me a finality. Mm-hmm. My number two is Revenge of the Sith. And I will tell you that if you would have asked me 6 months ago, this wouldn't have even been close. It's probably bottom three. But the reason that Revenge of the Sith is number two for me is because I watched the last season of Clone Wars that was just premiered on Disney Plus, and I'm a huge animation fan. I'm a huge art fan.
Yeah, that'll be subsequent episodes.
I love Star Wars: The Clone Wars, that animated series, with all my heart. What Dave Filoni was ever to put through, I love it. Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Mm-hmm. I thought that was amazing. What the last season of the Clone Wars did to supplement the story of Revenge of the Sith made Revenge of the Sith mean that much more to me.
Wow.
And again, let's have the same conversation in 6 months. 6 months,
it might change. Okay, we'll do a twice a year episode on our rankings here.
And it'll probably change every time. But Revenge of the Sith was that high up because of what I saw with the Clone Wars. Empire is number three for me for the same reason, like word for word what you said. I think it's the best directed movie of everything.
I think it just looks amazing too. I love the way it looks too.
And like just the Hoth scenes, the snowy, like just it was just so well
even
done.
In like Cloud City, the interiors of Cloud City, there's something really homey and comfortable about that somehow. I don't know why, but maybe because I watched it at home on cable TV a lot, and that's the parts I saw the most.
Darth Vader shows up, but he's just a dinner guest. There is something very welcoming about Cloud City, and just a fantastic movie. Number four, I'm going New Hope. It's the original, it's the classic, and I think that because it started the whole thing, it deserves a place up top. Force Awakens, I put 5, and partly because I felt like it was a clone of the New Hope. Clone, ha ha ha, get it? I'm a huge fan of female protagonists.
Yeah.
Especially this day and age, and I really, really like the character of Rey. I really like her, and so it's up there. Number 6, I put Phantom Menace, and the reason being 2 scenes, because you have to find a balance, and we're going to rank all sorts of stuff during this podcast.
Yeah,
and when you rank things, you have to look at the overall, and you have to look at specifics, and you have to balance between what is more important. Overall, no, the movie probably wasn't as good as most of the others on the list, but specifics, the Darth Maul scenes, when you first meet him in the desert of Tatooine, when you first see Ray Park as the actor bust out that double lightsaber, it's orgasmic.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Oh, you're allowed to say it.
Holy crap, this is amazing. And then the pod racing scenes were so well done visually. It's like watching Days of Thunder in Star Wars. It's awesome. Like you're engulfed in this. I thought those individual scenes alone bumped up the Phantom Menace so that I
Okay.
could ignore Jar Jar.
Wait, what number is Phantom Menace for you now?
Number
That's
6.
6? All right, 7.
7 is Rise of Skywalker. We've already discussed it. Attack of the Clones is number 8, and part of the reason is I'm going to ignore the whole like fake romance between Anakin
Yeah.
and Padme, because like in the Clone Wars they did a good job. In this movie, it's terrible acting, terrible dialogue. Everything about it was awful.
The droid factory scene is really bad too. But then the last like half hour of that movie is really good.
That's why I couldn't put it last.
And then I also note that the fight scene between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett's really cool too, I think. That fight out in the rain.
The fight scenes in Attack of the Clones make the movie. And what I feel a top 5 moment of all these movies is when you see Mace Windu light up that purple lightsaber. And all of a sudden, and here's the thing too, Philip, if you go back and I feel like I'm a little bit more of a nerd in the Star Wars lore than you are.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Meaning that I'm looking at like details of Star Wars
yeah.
hit me a little bit more than I think they hit you. Go back to that Coliseum scene. Look at the lightsabers that are lit up and look at who's holding them. You got legitimate characters that are not just placeholders, but they all in the Star Wars lore have stories.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're not just looking at random Jedi, you're looking at Jedi that have stories, whether it's in the Clone Wars, Extended Universe, whatever. You're going to see Kit Fisto. You're going to see Aayla Secura. You're going to see these Jedi that, and like those scenes alone, top 5. The movie itself, crap.
Number 8.
And the last, that's number 8.
So you put Last Jedi last.
Last Jedi got last, and again, if you ask me in a month, I'm going to change my mind.
Okay, well, I'll give you that.
The only reason I have Last Jedi as my last right now is because when I was sitting down to do this list, I didn't see as many wow moments in that movie as I did in the others. Attack of the Clones, I just told you what I thought. I don't have that same passion about anything in The Last Jedi.
Got it. That's fair. All right. Well, thanks, Patrick. And I think that's our review of Rise of Skywalker. As we go along with this, I'm sure we'll revisit that Star Wars universe because one kind of episode we're going to do is we're going to try to convince each other to get into stuff that one of us is into and the other one's not. And I think Patrick's got to convince me that Clone Wars is worth watching. So I think that'll be one of the tasks of this podcast. So Patrick, thanks a lot. I think that's going to do it for us in this episode. Stay tuned for more. We're the Stokes County Boys. This is Philip, and on behalf of my good friend Patrick, goodbye.
Goodbye.